Hey everybody, welcome to Tatter-a-fact podcast where PMU gets real raw and unapologetic. I'm Teryn, darling, your no bullshit mentor with 25 years in the game. So let's raise the bar and let's keep it there. So I'm really excited about the topic today. I'm going to talk about something that has always been really important to me. My entire career, from the very beginning until now, it's something that I really vested in, not just for myself and my own work, but wanted to really mentor others in. And it's something that I find a lot of artists are neglecting. It's just completely neglecting. So let's get at it. The real deal, why fundamentals in PMU are for lifers, not just newbies. The fundamentals in PMU are for artists that want to not just work in this industry for the rest of their lives, but thrive and create stellar, beautiful, amazing, rock star procedures, do amazing work their entire careers. Fundamentals are for those artists. They're not just for the newbies. I'm talking about fundamentals of PMU, not about beginner stuff. And I think that gets confused and mixed up a lot. A lot of people think fundamentals are for beginners only. Once an artist has been in the industry 1, 2, 3 years or longer, then the fundamentals are no longer, they no longer need to be studied and revisited. And that's just not true. Absolutely not. The fundamentals are the foundation your entire career is built on. The fundamentals is where you'll turn to and what you will use for the rest of your career in order to create that level of work that I just mentioned. If you are skipping the fundamentals, thinking you don't need them, or if you entered the industry with a 2 or 3 day signature training class, right, which is the way a lot of artists enter the industry, a 2 or 3 day signature training class, and you didn't get proper and full coverage fundamental training, which typically you do not in a 2 or 3 day training class, there's no possible way that you can get full spectrum, proper fundamental training and education in a 2 or 3 day class. Or you've been doing PMU for 4 or 5 years now, and you just don't think you need to revisit and keep studying the fundamentals. If any of that applies to you or someone you know, you are at a disadvantage and you will struggle. I can assure you. I mentor a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people, a lot of artists. And the one thing in common I've known for quite some time, is they're lacking non-bias, science-based, theory-based strong, fundamental education. And they are struggling. They're having a really hard time. So this episode is going to be a reminder that artists who last, who grow, who evolve, who become known for their work, or at the very least become the artist they set out to be. And I believe for all artists, they set out to be the very best that they can possibly be. I believe that every single person entering this industry, their intention is to be the very best artist that they can be, if not the best. Why not go for the best? I went for the best. That was in my mind when I entered PMU 25 years ago. I wanted to be the best artist ever. You know? I mean, I know those are high goals. And I'm certainly not going to sit here and tell you that I achieved them, that I became or ever once was the best artist ever. But what I will tell you is I became one of the best. I've lasted 25 years. I've grown and I'm still growing. And I did become known for my work. And although I didn't reach that goal, maybe unrealistic goal of being the best, because I put such a high goal above my head, it made me work really hard to get as close as I can to being the best. You know? So, to be all that, to grow, to become known for your work, or at the very least, be the artist you have set out to be, you must study the fundamentals like your career depends on it. Because honestly, it kind of does. And I'm serious when I say that. Your career depends on it. At the very start of my career, I was obsessed, as I mentioned, with the fundamentals. And I still am. When I say fundamentals, I'm talking skin. All aspects of it. And that's a big, layered, complex topic. Needle. All needles. And there's lots of different needles to study and learn. And not just configurations, but angle, depth, hand pressure. What skin type is best for what needle? Pigments. Another big, layered, complex topic, right? And techniques, hand movements, skin, pigments, needles, hand movements, techniques. All those are part of the fundamental universe of permanent makeup. They were 25 years ago. They are today. And they will remain so 25 years from now. Those are the fundamentals of PMU. They made me who I am. all along the way and who I am today. And they are why I am still here today, because of those fundamentals, my infatuation with them, my understanding of how important they were to my work, myself, and my career, and how I just became a sponge and obsessed with them and remain so to this very moment. I mean, here I am on the Tatter-a-fact podcast talking about the fundamentals because I just feel they are so neglected and people just push them by the wayside. Or some of the fundamentals being taught are taught from the perspective of how that particular trainer works, not a full spectrum, a fully encompassing fundamental training program or education. So fundamentals are not beginner level, okay? Yes, as a beginner, you must start with the fundamentals, but they're not beginner level. The fundamentals should stay with you throughout your entire career. So let's squash that myth first. The fundamentals of permanent makeup are not beginner material. Again, it doesn't matter if you've been doing brows for 6 months or 16 years. Your ability to create consistent, clean, and long-lasting work, which ages the way you want it to age, stays on tone, will always come back to your fundamentals and how you understand and employ those fundamentals. Think about any high-level athlete, musician, or surgeon. They don't stop doing drills or practicing scales or refining their technique once they make it or once they become good and skillful. Hell no. They continue practicing the fundamentals over and over and over. They continue learning. And I see so many artists in the industry that have been in the industry for 2, 3, 4 years, and with some of their answers and some of the things, they don't understand the fundamentals. They need to go back to the fundamentals. A good, solid, fundamental educational program. Let's talk about my girl, Asia Wilson. All right? She plays for the Las Vegas Aces. If you know anything about me at all, well, you know I love Cher. I'm obsessed with Elvis. I'm grumpy in the morning. There's a few things you know about me. And you probably know that I am a huge WNBA fan. Huge fan. And Kat and I have season tickets to the Las Vegas Aces. And we're right in like crunch time right now. We're in where they're like playing for their lives to qualify, for the playoffs. It's exciting. It's thrilling to see women at this caliber playing basketball with all this grit and strength and even aggression sometimes, and the skill is just absolutely amazing. So Asia Wilson, I'm a big fan. She's she's my favorite Las Vegas Aces player. 3-time MVP, 2-time WNBA champs. She led the Las Vegas Aces twice, 2 years in a row, to the WNBA championships and won them. That is hard to do. She's number 1 at the free throw line. She's number 1 in going for the basket and drawing the foul. So she could double her points if she makes the basket. That's 2 points. And if she draws the foul, she goes to the free throw line. And if she makes those 2 baskets, which she does more than any other player in the WNBA, she just scored 4 points. Not 2, but brought it up to 4. And she's a master at drawing in that foul. She's a badass. And she still practices and does her fundamental drills every day. Constantly, consistently, during the season, off season. The fundamental drills of throwing the basket from all the different places on the court, dribbling, passing, the fundamentals of basketball. Even though she's a badass and considered the best player in the WNBA right now, she goes back and practices those fundamentals every day, and she uses those fundamentals every single night on the court. Well, now she's A'ja Wilson. A'ja Wilson, the 3-time MVP, so she's not bound to those fundamentals. She puts the A'ja Wilson spin and flash on those fundamentals. Right? Because she's evolved to that. But those fundamentals, they're the foundation of her skill set in her game. Because that repetition of the basics is what maintains mastery. It's what starts to build mastery, and it's what maintains mastery, you guys. In our world, the PMU world, fundamentals are the same. It's what builds mastery, and it's what maintains mastery. The fundamentals are not training wheels, right? They're not training wheels. They build mastery. If you don't check and maintain them, keep revisiting them, keep studying them and maintain them, you're going to run into a problem halfway through a procedure and have no idea how to pivot and recover. That happens all the time. That happens all the time for us artists. You think you predict the skin, you think you pick the right color, the right needle, and then you get into that skin and shit goes sideways. And now you got to pivot. You got to pivot and you need to recover. And you need to know what to pivot to that's going to do a better job with how that skin is behaving or misbehaving. It's probably the better word. Because skin misbehaves a lot. And if you don't understand the fundamentals, all fundamentals, full coverage fundamentals, I mean the science of pigments, not a pigment brand, but the science of all pigments, the science and theory of all pigments. If you don't understand needles, different needle configurations, both small and larger, and can use them on a dime with skill and mastery. If you don't understand skin and can't assess it properly, know when it needs, what type of pigment, modifier, if so, all that stuff. If you don't understand full coverage. I'm talking full spectrum fundamentals on pigment skin needles, not selective, then you are not going to know how to pivot, recover, and get that procedure done and have it heal with satisfaction. You're just not going to know how, and you're going to encounter way more struggles and way more dissatisfied work than necessary. The pillars are the non-negotiables of fundamentals, right? So let's talk about the pillars, the non-negotiables of fundamentals. Skin knowledge. The skin, you guys, man, skin. Took me many, many, many years to really wrap my brain around skin. That didn't come easy for me. The fascination of skin, the want, the desire to learn it and learn it inside and out, the overtones, the undertones, everything to do with skin. Cool. What's cool? You know, and once I learned what cool was, well, there's different levels of cool. It's not just cool is cool is cool. You know, it's not like one size fits all when it comes to cool levels. There's different intensities of cool, which requires different decisions from the artist. So I had that fascination and that want to learn all of that. Thank God, you know, thank God. I just had that in me. No one like forced that upon me. And I'm not saying it was easy to learn skin. It was not easy. I took so many classes, and some of the classes, the minute, you know, I would get on a by air, you know, and I'm broke back then, you guys. I'd get on a, you know, plane and, you know, spend money on a hotel room. I would see if other people go into class, if they didn't mind a roommate, so I could get my room budget lower, my room expense lower. You know, and it's like you could tell, like the minute not long into a class, if it was a class that was, you know, I mean, based on, you know, science theory and experience, and it was relevant and it was good and I was going to get something from it, or if it was a class that was just based on bullshit. Okay. I don't know any other way to say it, but just based on bullshit. And one of the classes I took way back when, so many years ago, it's like she got swatches out, like fabric swatches, and like held it up, you know, like brought students up and held the fabric up to the skin, their face. And yeah, if she's a fall, then you want to use these colors. And right then I was like, okay, okay. All right. This ain't right. I mean, you know, I mean, at least I had the wherewithal not to buy into everything that was being taught to me. I mean, I'm a Virgo, so I'm real practical. And I'm a real thinker. I'm a realist. And things need to make scientific sense. I need theory. I need examples. You know, and then I need to go do it myself and see for myself. So, you know, lots of classes. And then I just find my way to understanding skin, you know, pretty darn good. And then with my own work, I start really understanding the undertone, the overtone, the different cool levels. And I just start writing. I start writing everything I'm discovering. Right? So the skin is not just a canvas. It's a living, breathing, ever-changing personality, for lack of a better word. You need to be able to read it and assess it accurately. You just do, because so many things are depending on your assessment of that skin. And again, that means identifying, understanding the undertone and overtone of that skin. Is that skin cool? If so, how cool? Recognizing compromised skin. Is that skin oily? Is it dry? Is it thin? Is it mature? We need to assess and identify all those variables with the skin. Because your stretch, your depth, your hand movement, your pigment choice and needle selection change depending on that skin. It's critical that you understand the skin type of every single client, because all those important decisions that I just mentioned are based on that skin assessment, right? It's based on that skin assessment. And this goes way beyond picking a color that looks pretty in the bottle. So this is where pigment knowledge becomes very important. One of the pillars and non-negotiables of PMU fundamentals, pigment knowledge. We just went over skin and why that's so important, right? I could spend 3 hours sitting here talking to you about skin and why it's so important, and go into great detail about all the different decisions we make, go into great detail about the brow type for the skin type laying down in your bed at that moment. What brow type are you going to do? You're going to do hair strokes, you're going to do powder, what pigment are you going to choose for that client, what needle. I mean, I could go into great detail about each variable, but I'm trying to make this only be an hour podcast. Actually, Kat thinks I should get it down to 45 minutes. My last podcast was like an hour and 40 minutes talking about anesthetics. So, all right. So we just went over skin knowledge, and that is a part of the fundamental. You need to know it inside and out, backwards and frontwards, everything about it. And now pigment knowledge. You've got to understand pigments, the science of pigments, right? And again, this goes way beyond picking a color that looks pretty in the bottle. Who didn't do that in the beginnings of their career? I did, because I had a shitty 6-month apprenticeship here in Vegas. One of the worst. It got me licensed. That's it, basically. And I did get model work. I got a lot of model work. I brought in a lot of models. And so thank God. But she was over in the corner, like filing her nails and doing other shit. But I got no color theory knowledge, no needle knowledge, no nothing. She just basically, I just used the machine she used, the needle she used, and worked in the way she worked, told me to work. I mimicked her, basically. And that's still going on today. You just mimic how the trainer works, and you get no fundamental training, no in-depth training on pigments, the science of pigments, no in-depth knowledge and training on skin, on needles, nothing. It's rampant in this industry. So a lot of us started out just picking a color that looks pretty in the bottle. And that didn't work very well for us. Right? Because it doesn't heal what it looks like in the bottle. It can look pretty in the bottle, but then it can heal, pretty crappy. Gray, and all kinds of sort of colors, just depending. So you need to understand what's in that pigment. You got to understand the base tone of that pigment. You got to understand its concentration level. You have to understand how it heals, how it ages. You have to understand how it interacts with every single client's overtone and undertone. That's really, really important. You know, every single client is unique, and you're never going to work on the same skin type twice. You're just never going to. And that's what makes what we do both exciting and horrifying at the same time. You need to understand inorganics versus organics and how each one works. Very, very important, because there are two different types of pigments that work very, very differently. And one may be better for a certain skin type than the other. And it's important to know that. And you're not going to know that unless you understand skin and you understand pigments. If you're working with a hybrid, does that hybrid contain black carbon? If it does, is that a good choice? Is that pigment a good choice? Is it a good choice for that particular client? If you feel comfortable using black carbon-based pigment on that particular client, how much? How much black carbon do you feel comfortable with on that particular client? How much black carbon is safe for that particular client? Meaning, it won't last for years and years and years and end up a gray mess, which a lot of artists are dealing with right now. There are some skin types that you should not be using a pigment that contains high amounts of black carbon. Absolutely not. You're doing a disservice to the client and to yourself. There are some skin types that if that pigment even contains a moderate amount of black carbon, you should not be using it. And then there's some skin types that are okay for pigments that contain moderate to high amounts of black carbon. Black carbon is a beast, and you must understand it. You must understand it. Are modifiers needed for that particular client and that particular pigment you've chosen? If so, which modifier? Straight up, pure, unadulterated orange? Yellow orange? Those bright neon organic reds? Red modifiers? Those dull, muted, orangey red, inorganic modifiers? Which ones? And how much? Not understanding modifiers can get you into a lot of trouble. And it all starts with skin, right? Assessing the skin. What is that skin type you're looking at? And what's that skin going to do to your pigment? What's it going to pull? How's it going to age? This does all come with time. knowing this inside and out. And it probably took me, I would say, 5 or 6 years of diligent study and asking a lot of questions and making mistakes until I started feeling really super comfortable in being capable of predicting my healed in tones and my aged results. Probably 5 or 6 years. But that's 5 or 6 years, back in the day. I mean, I was working 6 days a week. I was booked solid and I was seeing 5 to 6 clients a day. And artists don't work like that these days. And even when the industry, and not just because of the economy, even when the industry was booming, artists didn't work that type of schedule. They didn't see, 5 or 6 clients in a day because the single needle was so popular. And for most artists, it took them 3 hours to do a brow, an eyeliner or a lip. So if a procedure's taken you 3 hours, on average, I know some artists can get done quicker, and some artists will admit it takes them 3.5 to 4 hours. But let's just say on average, it's taking you 3 hours to complete a procedure because you prefer the single needle. Well, then you can only do 2 clients in a day, right? But I grew up in a time, in an era where all needles were taught. And coming from a body tattoo background, all needles were taught. You might not use all needles and you might gravitate to your favorites that you seem to do your best work with, that you're most efficient with, but all needles were taught. And so I had all needles at my disposal right from the start of my PMU career. And for me, I quickly learned, especially on oily, resistant, challenging skin types, bigger needles, got the job done quickly, efficiently, and amazingly well. Amazingly well. It wasn't a struggle, So I was able to work in a manner where I could fit 5 to 6 clients a day, a combination of new procedures and refreshes and touch-ups, 5 to 6 a day. And I worked that way for about 13 and a half years straight. So that's being on a lot of skin, a lot of different skin types, a lot of different clients. And that experience, that I was allowed that opportunity, is priceless. It's priceless because I got to take all that fundamental knowledge and education that I was learning and absorbing and now starting to write about to the procedure room and apply it on 5 or 6 clients a day, 6 days a week. So it was just priceless. It was priceless for me. And I was very blessed. And I acknowledge that some artists just don't have that opportunity today. And I wish you did. I think you would get to your goals and quicker. And I'm not saying you'd have less frustration, because I think that's just part of growing and figuring things out. Frustration and things not, always going the way you want. That's just a part of it. But I think you'd overcome them and get to the place you want to be quicker. So, but anyway, this is why I wrote and launched Beyond the Epidermis, because I saw the neglect in learning the skin in ways a PMU artist must learn it. must learn it. And I wanted to write beyond the epidermis from a place of science, theory, and yes, some of my experience. And leave out bias and as much opinion as possible. But I think with experience comes opinions. And I do express some of my opinions in Beyond the Epidermis. But I think I did a really good job of expressing them fairly, where if you don't agree, it doesn't mean you're wrong. And I think with Beyond the Epidermis, I curated it in a way that it gives you all this education, so much I can't even list it. It's just so much education in a way that you can understand it and absorb it and not get bored, right? Because when I was taking a lot of courses, I mean, a lot of it was drab. It was very boring. And so I know that a course, especially on very technical information like the skin, it has to be, yes, educational, 100%, first and foremost, and you have to be able to take that education and apply it, no matter what pigment line you're using, no matter what technique you're using, on every single skin type, no matter what skin type's in your chair, in a very practical way, apply it. But I also understood that I had to give you that type of education in a way that wasn't going to bore you. And I do get a lot of comments and feedback on that. So I think I did a pretty good job. But even with a lot of people that take Beyond the Epidermis, I think nowadays, I don't know what it is. But a lot of people don't read, or they don't read thoroughly, or they don't go back and reread and reread and reread until it makes sense. I think a lot of people are very quick, like they graze. They just graze. And I think that's today's world with social media and scrolling. You know, a lot of people just don't take the time. And I don't think they intend not to take the time. I just think that's today's world. And I think 100%. I was just talking to some colleagues that are, you know, I told you their names, you'd agree with me. They're, you know, very well-known artists doing stellar work, great trainers. And you know, and we kind of like all agree, like today's industry just doesn't take the time to learn and read. Not everybody, of course, but a lot of people, you know, and and you have to put that in. You have to put that time and effort in. You do. So realizing that, and also realizing that not everybody absorbs and maintains and can make sense of the information I'm teaching them. There's some people that really struggle with undertones and overtones and everything that goes along with skin. And so I then created the Beyond the Epidermis book and the color theory and correction checklist, which is like, I guess the best way to describe it is like Cliff Notes to the online course, right? The online course is long, it's in depth, but it's super organized and it moves along. And I think it's exciting and not boring. But like I said, there's some people that just graze, or there's some people that while they're learning this and training their brain to absorb it and apply it, they could really benefit from something like the color theory book and the 2 checklists that I created, because you can have those right in your room. And it's a short book, and then you have the 2 checklists. They're like posters, and super, super helpful. Very helpful. I've gotten all kinds of feedback, hundreds of feedback on the book and the 2 checklists. That, game saver, most useful tool like I've ever bought, like just great things. So if you're struggling learning the skin, consider the Beyond the Epidermis, and consider the Beyond the Epidermis book and color theory correction checklist. Okay. And if you're listening to this podcast, I'll do that at the end. So, I do use LI Pigments, but again, my class very non-bias. It's non-bias. I'm not trying to get you to buy LI. I'm not trying to get you to understand LI Pigments. It is 100% non-bias, and I'm educating you on pigments, the science of pigments, the science of skin, the theory of skin. Okay. So let's go to needles. Another pillar and non-negotiable when it comes to fundamentals. We cannot neglect our needles. If you don't know your needles, you are going to struggle. And so many artists are struggling right now because they've only been taught to use one needle. And it seems that the majority of the trainings out there today are teaching the single or the single and 3RL. That's it. So a new artist is coming into the industry only being taught those 2 very small needle configurations, and they are struggling, right? Every configuration behaves differently, and not every needle is best suited for every skin type. And it's really sad to me that new artists and artists that have been in the industry 1 to 2 years now, sometimes it's taken them 1 to 2 years, up to 3 years, to get so frustrated that they go looking beyond their trainer. They go looking for help elsewhere. And some of them, many of them, are finding artists like me and other artists that are turning them on to all needle configurations. We're not advising that they put down and not use their single or 3RL, but we are advising and encouraging and educating that a single and 3RL is not suited for certain skin types, and you're not going to be able to accomplish what you want to accomplish, and you're at risk at overworking the skin. We're introducing them to other needles, other options that they can bring in to their toolbox alongside their single and 3RL. It's very, very important. It's important to know when to use a single versus a 3RL when you're talking small needles, right? Both are small needles, but both are different, right? It's important to know why a single or 3RL both might traumatize one skin type, but be perfect for another skin type, right? Someone that's only learned the single and the 3RL, if that pigment is not going in with the single, that artist's only option is to jump up to a 3RL, which may do a better job because there's 2 more needles It's not a significantly bigger needle, but it's bigger. It's still a liner, so it's a tight configuration. So maybe the 3RL is doing a little bit better of a job implanting pigment. But if that artist had the option of jumping up to a 5 shader or an 8 shader, that could make a world of difference. Maybe just going from the single to the 3RL was the pivot needed. And that was the only pivot needed. It was the perfect pivot. But what if that 3RL is not getting pigment in the skin? That artist needs a pivot again. And she needs a pivot to a large shader or a larger mag, because that skin is just not having it with these smaller, tighter needle configurations. Right? It's important to know diameter size. Diameter affects saturation and skin trauma. It's very, very important to understand not just needle configuration, like how many needles are in that particular grouping, but it's important to know and understand the diameter size of the needle you're using and why you're using that diameter size. Is that diameter size needle, is that an appropriate diameter size for that particular skin type? Or would a different diameter size be more appropriate for that particular skin? It's important to know about textured needles. Should you use a textured needle? Should you not use a textured needle? It's important to know movement, hand movement with each needle. You know, so many artists are restricted with their hand movements. They don't realize that you could do whip shading with an 8 shader and a 7 mag. They think you can only whip shade with, you know, a single or a 3RL. So it's really, and it's important to know how each needle penetrates the skin, right? Does it take more hand pressure or less hand pressure with that particular needle? This is why I wrote and composed The Needle in the Prick, because too many artists don't know what all these different needles do, what they accomplish, the trauma they could be causing, or why they're even using the needle that they're using. They're like, you know, so many other artists that are using what their trainer told them to use. And that's normal. That's normal. But there comes a time in every artist's career when that artist needs to move beyond that. Move beyond using only what your trainer used and start to expand, discover, and experience other needles. It's critical to your career. With signature training, you may have been taught 1 needle, maybe 2, and that will restrict you and it will affect your work 100%. And I'm not downing signature training. I offered signature trainings for years, especially when it came to my eyeliner work, right? I use a very specific needle, very specific movements. I do a very specific eyeliner look and technique that I became really well known for, and that thousands and thousands of clients want and seek and are still booking me for. So when you came to see my eyeliner class, you were getting signature training, my signature training to learn my signature style eyelining. But the difference is that wasn't fundamental training. I'm not offering fundamental training. I'm offering my signature style training in eyeliners. And what's happening in this industry that's hurting so many artists and holding them back is they're entering the industry as a newbie with a signature style training, typically on brows, signature style, rather than like an apprenticeship. A good apprenticeship that teaches all the needle configurations, all the different skin types, all the different everythings, right? Full compass, full spectrum, fundamentals. All right, let's talk about machine understanding. I think that's important. Every machine is not created equal, right? Each machine has a stroke setting, speed, torque, give, and all of it matters, right? All of that, all those things I just mentioned affect your results. Running the machine too fast, too slow, stroke setting too high, too low for the type of work you do, moving your hand too fast or too slow in comparison to the speed of the machine. You must know your machine. You must learn the vibration and the noise of the machine, because that's what guides you, right? That's how the machine speaks to you. It's how it lets you know whether you're a little too deep or you're a little too shallow. That's why it's good to have a little noise to your machine and a little vibration to your machine. Some artists, newbies, they don't want there was an era, before we started using these new pens by Bishop, and these more tattoo style pens. There were these rotary PMU machines that were like $15,000 and $20,000, and they had zero vibration, zero noise. And I always felt that was a real disservice to the artist. I always used machines that I bought from the tattoo industry that were used in tattooing, because they had some vibration and some noise to them. And once you learn your machine, you hear it. You hear the vibration change. You hear the noise. You feel the vibration change according to your needle depth. And that became very important data for me. And I don't think a lot of our artists really understand that, because we're not teaching that. A lot of artists are not being taught that. But it is very important. It's very important that you understand your machine, you understand your stroke setting, you understand the speed of your hand in comparison to the speed of the machine. And, when it comes to machines, you can have a 3-stroke setting on one machine, one brand, and on another, a completely different brand of machine, a 3-point stroke setting. Yet if you were to compare the 3-point stroke setting on the two different machines, they would not be equal. They would not be the same. They can vary. So if you're using a 3-point stroke setting on one machine and you buy a brand new machine with a 3-point stroke setting, there could be a difference. There could be a difference there. And it might feel a little weird, and there might be a little learning curve. So keep that in mind. hand pressure, stretch, hand movements, and depth. All fundamentals. All important. Really important. All right? Your hand movement's important. That stretch is important. Your hand pressure is important. And the depth in which you place that needle is important. And this is where artistry creates the separation. Right? This is where artistry separates artists that produce poor work, mediocre work, good work, or great work. Your understanding of everything I just mentioned will separate you as an artist into one of those categories. And I believe every single artist listening to this podcast wants to do great fucking work. I believe every artist in this industry wants to do great fucking work. I can't believe anything different. I just can't believe anything different because I can't wrap my brain around any artist wanting to do mediocre work or just good work. I think every artist is striving to do great fucking work. And you have to know all those things to do great work and be a stellar artist that can handle all the different skin types and produce all the different styles and looks that your clients are going to request you for. You can't see pressure or depth in a photo. Well, you can if they went way too deep and there's a migration. But typically, it's very difficult to see hand pressure or depth in a photo. But you can see the result of poor control. You can see the result of poor retention, inconsistent saturation. And yeah, you can see blowouts. And when it's obvious someone went too deep. But going too deep doesn't always cause blowouts or migration. So a lot of times you can't see that in a photo. You can't see improper depth in a photo. So mastering depth, control, symmetry, consistent healed in results, hand movements, stretch, all those things and more, mastering all that takes intentional practice and it takes the right education. 100%. And I want every artist to have that opportunity and to apply themselves in that way, because that's what's going to get you to greatness. You know, and greatness doesn't take just a little bit of time. Greatness takes a lot of time. Let's talk about saturation strategy. You have to know when to build and when to back off, right? Clients request what they want, and we have to deliver. You don't have to, you can turn them away. But a lot of clients want that soft, airy, powdery brow that we see. And some clients want full to high saturation. They want bolder looks when it comes to their brows, eyeliner, and lips. They just do. There's a percentage and a segment of clients that want that. And you can fool yourself and think that's not what clients want maybe in your particular city or area, that's not what is customary. Maybe because you've showcased your good work of soft and powdery results, that's what you're attracting to yourself. And so that's what you're working on. But that doesn't mean that there's not clients out there, and lots of them, requesting full saturation and bolder looks from other artists. Because they are. Just because you're not getting the request, and that's not like a common look in your area, doesn't mean that's not a high request and a popular look for some artists in some areas. Being in Vegas, I get it all. I get it all. That's why I had to learn to be super versatile. And I was the type of artist where I'm the type of person I didn't want to turn anybody away. I wanted to be able to deliver all looks. Soft, natural, airy, powdery, all the way to fuller saturation, bold and striking, and everything in between. And man, doesn't that test you as an artist? Doesn't that test you as an artist? Sure did me. But I love it. Overworking the skin isn't just about trauma, right? It's about misunderstanding how pigment implants or using the wrong needle for that skin type or for the desired look wanted by the client. And just because you see an artist on Instagram producing a high saturated brow with a mag or a larger shader using what I call packing movements, tighter, more smaller ovals and circles with a larger needle, that doesn't mean that artist is overworking the skin and causing scar tissue and like fibrosis and all these other things, which I just saw yesterday on an Instagram post and the work was being done by a very, very, very talented artist and mega talented artist. Man, amazing healed results. And her client wanted full saturation. And she posted a little video clip, and boy, didn't she get some shit. And she got some really ignorant comments. I hate to use that word ignorant. I'm sorry. I know it sounds bad. And I looked, one time I looked up, is ignorant a bad word? Is that an offensive word? And it's not. It's not. It's just what means someone's, commentating on something they know nothing about. So I saw a lot of ignorance, and it made me really sad. Made me really sad for that artist. And it also made me really sad for the artist that made the ignorant comment and accused her of overworking the skin and causing scar tissues. And that's not a way to work. And you should not be showcasing that. Are you kidding me? But I felt bad for her too, because she don't even know what she don't know. That's what she was taught. That's what she was taught. That's what she was like brainwashed to believe. Right? But you can give a talented artist, a skilled artist, like myself, like Amber Guthrie, like this one I'm talking about. I don't want to say her name because I don't know if I should, but lots of artists now. Lots and lots of artists are doing fuller saturation with larger needles, 7 and 8 shaders, 7 and 9 mags, and we're giving fuller saturation. We're using inorganics, of course, because we know what we're doing. We're not going to do that with carbon-based pigment or a pigment that has a lot of carbon, because we know what we're doing. But because we're doing, fuller saturation, with those larger needles, that doesn't mean we're causing scar tissue. We're traumatizing the skin. And that's an improper way to work at all. At all. Some artists are really fucking good in executing full saturated brows, eyeliner, lips. They're in and out of that skin quickly. They get great healed in color in 1 to 2 sessions, and they're causing very minimal trauma. So those comments really, they bother me. And sometimes they upset me. And if I'm to be honest, which I am, especially on this podcast, sometimes they just piss me off. They just piss me off, because it's not true. And how many people are reading that comment that she wrote and are buying into it and believing it, and now will never use a bigger needle and will never want to create fuller saturated brows because they're afraid. There's a trickle effect. There's a trickle down and horizontal effect when you're putting out misinformation. So, and I guess the only way to stop misinformation is to address it, and that's one of the reasons for this podcast. So, so again, there's clients that want that look, and there's a right way to do a full saturated boulder brow where the edges, about 1 millimeter or 2 millimeters of the edges, heal soft and powdery, but the middle, and outwards, is fuller and saturated, but there's still this breath to it, if you will. Some people know how to do that and do it so well. And some people don't. And it ends up looking like a sticker, and it's really unattractive. It's too solid. It doesn't breathe. It's terrible. Even a full saturated brow has to breathe. It has to breathe. If the client wants a full saturated bold brow, a single needle is in no means the best needle to use. It's just not. You're going to just have to do way too many passes. Way, way, way too many passes. And you could end up overworking the skin. Not every skin type takes pigment well. We all know that. And not every skin type holds pigment the same or as well. We all know that. Not every needle can deliver full saturation, especially on oily, resistant skin types. This is a nuance, and this is what the fundamentals teach you, right? Using the right needle will make you super efficient and timely. It will reduce healing time for the client. It will reduce your time in the skin, which causes less trauma. You'll get better heals. So it's really important to know what needle works best with each skin type, whether that skin is mature, thin, and dry, younger, oily, and thicker, and what that client wants as far as saturation level. There's situations and cases where the single needle is a fabulous needle to use. and you're going to get great results with it. There's cases and situations where a 3-liner is great, a 5-liner. And then there's skin in cases and situations where all those needles I just mentioned are not the best needle to use and are just going to end up causing more trauma. And more trauma affects the healing process, which in turn ultimately affects our healed end results. Right? So, trend training versus foundational training. Foundational, fundamental education and training. I see artists spending thousands of dollars on signature style trainings, and I'm not mad at that. It's awesome and an honor to learn from great artists. As I mentioned, I offered signature style trainings, but I also offered fundamental training apprenticeships that were 12 months long. And there's a big difference between the two. I'm not going to have a newbie come into my 2 or 3 day signature style training. Just not. That newbie is going to have to sign up for my 12-month fundamental training apprenticeship. That was just a part of my philosophy and belief system and the way I set up trainings. I had to really vet students wanting to get into my eyeliner classes, my brow classes, and my lip classes, because I had to make 100% sure that they used machines and they were not newbies, because they would slow the class down. I trained, my signature style trainings were for intermediate to more advanced artists that already had a good, solid, fundamental training experience and foundation. I even asked to look at the pictures. We would, and they only sent 1 or 2. I mean, we went on their Instagrams, we went on their Facebooks. Me and my team totally stalked them, And if they weren't quite right for my eyeliner class, then, I would have a conversation with them. And a lot of them were not right. They were not at the level they needed to be in my fundament, my signature, one of my signature style training classes. Right? But I could refer them to someone else, here in Vegas or somewhere else, according to where they're at skill-wise and what they're needing. So explore styles. You guys, explore amazing artists and trainers. But don't confuse a trend with a fundamental, full scope skill set. Signature style trainings like my own usually teach you one way to tattoo one type of skin for one kind of result. They may not, and typically do not teach you how to adjust when the skin is oily, when the pigment isn't holding, or when the client comes back with ash or cool or unwanted tones. They usually don't teach you how to meet all the client's requests, low, medium, and full saturation. They don't teach you all the different skin types and how to pivot when you encounter skin that's misbehaving, not cooperating. They don't teach you all the different needle configurations, when to use one and maybe not the other. That's where foundational, fundamental education is key. Without it, your work becomes fragile and very, very limited and restricted. Fundamental education teaches you how to think, how to be a critical thinker, how to pick and choose your tools, your movements, your techniques wisely for that particular skin type, and how to adapt. And that's what gives you confidence and mastery over your healed in and aged results. That's what separates good artists from great artists. You can't wing what you don't understand. One of the most dangerous things in PMU is confidence without comprehension. When an artist doesn't truly understand why they're doing something, but they've been told to do it, and they're just repeating steps, they're not building skill. They're just repeating steps and not building skill. They're on autopilot. New artists don't know what they don't know, and that's okay. We were all there, including myself, for quite some time, if I'm to be honest. It's not okay to settle for that, though. Do you hear me? I'm going to say that again. It's not okay to settle for that. I didn't settle for that because I knew I deserved better than that. I knew what I wanted for myself in this industry. Fuck, I'm getting a little emotional. But that's because I care. I care deeply. I care what's going on in this industry, and I care what's happening to artists, and I care what's happening to clients. And for those artists that want a real run, a real fair opportunity at being something great in this amazing industry, creating beautiful work, one day, it's not okay to settle. You deserve better than that. I deserved better than that, and I got better than that for myself, and I want you to do the same. I want to see all artists that are in this industry for all the right reasons be successful. Be super successful, whatever that looks like for you. We all have our own individual dreams and goals of what we want to accomplish in this industry. For me, my goals were high and vast. For some of you, it's just to create beautiful work and be an artist. To accomplish anything worthwhile in this industry, you have to be able to create good work. And if I can help in any way artists that are in this for the right reason and willing to put the time in, really, really put the fucking time in needed, then I want to help you. There is help for you, and you can do it. I believe in you, and you need to believe in yourself, but it takes time. It takes effort. It takes practice. It takes discipline. It takes commitment and loyalty and reading the same stuff over and over and over and over again, whether it's boring, become boring or not. It's what you must do. Right? But a lot of people don't do that. So what happens a lot of the time? They panic when a procedure isn't going as expected. They keep tattooing compromised skin. They're causing more and more trauma. They're way over traumatizing that skin. And they just keep going because they don't know better. They use a single when the client wants full saturation and or has thick, oily, textured skin. Many blame the pigment or they blame the client. They must have picked. How many times have we seen that? And a lot of people even advise that. Oh, she must have picked. We have to stop making excuses. Right? Many artists I run into know it's lack of education and training and skill. They make no excuses, and they're on a mission to learn, improve, grow, and hopefully grow into an amazing artist. Those artists are out there, and they reach out for help. And it's those artists that really tug at my heartstrings and really make me super emotional because they realize they spent thousands of dollars on what was marketed as really good training. You'll learn the skin, you'll learn all this. And they didn't learn much at all. They got really bad training. And they know they need training. They know they need better education. They know that they need help. They make no excuses. They don't even blame the bad trainer or training. They're just in a position where they're frustrated and they want help. And they're praying to God they pick the right trainer and the right person this time. With all that said, a well-trained artist who studied and continues to study the fundamentals can stop, assess, make the best choices, pivot if needed, and still deliver a beautiful healed-in result, even on challenging skin, because they understand the why. They built their skill off the fundamentals. And they keep revisiting the fundamentals and studying the fundamentals. If you're out here winging your needle choice, your depth, your pigment selection, or you don't know what you use, or why you use it, or do what you do, you're not practicing artistry, and you probably know that. I have a feeling you're probably crossing your fingers. You have a ton of anxiety. And waking up in the morning, nervous that you might be hearing from that client. Right? Real education for real artists. If you want to stop second guessing your pigment, your needle, your hand movements, saturation levels, techniques, depth, and all those things that we must learn as PMU artists. If you want to know how to approach and work on every skin type like a skilled artist, if you want to know how and when to adjust and pivot when shit goes wrong, and it does. If you want to feel confident sitting there in your chair working on every client, don't just take signature style classes. Start building your foundational skills for your career. Revisit non-bias, full spectrum, fundamental, foundational classes and education. They're there for you to learn and start building your skills from. You're not to be bound by them. Hell no, that's not what I'm saying. But you're to build off them. It's the foundational skills that you will rely on more often than not throughout your career. So I've got some classes. I talked about my class, Beyond the Epidermis. It's non-biased pigment and skin, science, theory. It's a big detailed class on everything you need to know about skin. I have the needle in the prick. So we'll teach you about each needle configuration, what it does and why, making smart selections for all the different skin types, for the different saturation levels being asked by your clients, everything that you need to know about needles, all needles, singles, liners, shaders, mags, the angles of them, the way you hold them, the way you move them. And I have the Machine and Movements course, which teaches you how to feel your work, not just go through the motions. Teaches you all about machines and the hand movement you will use with that machine, the different hand movements you will use with that machine, or the hand movement options you have that you can use with that machine to achieve the best results for that skin type, that particular client, and what that client is asking for. I built these classes because they were needed. True fundamental classes were needed. Fundamental classes without bias and without the bullcrap. Classes based on science, theory, and 25 years of successful procedures and results, which I achieved because I was taught and remained loyal to the fundamentals. And because of those fundamentals, I was able to go off, get my swag on, and create and develop all kinds of other techniques that became my signature techniques. And I couldn't have done that without those fundamentals. And to this day, I rely on those fundamentals to get me out of trouble, to help me pivot, to help me get through really tough, challenging skin. Right? So if you're stuck, check your foundation. If you're feeling stuck, no pun intended, insecure or inconsistent, or if you're just feeling lost in a procedure, there's probably a crack in your foundation. And that's not an insult, you guys. I mean that to be a redirection. I mean that to be a positive thing. Because too many people are quitting, or they feel like giving up. They're frustrated. Artists are calling me and they're emotional. They're crying. They feel like failures. That's the worst thing for me to hear, is they feel like they are failures and they're failing at this. And they're failing their clients. They're failing their family because they thought this was going to be a great career for them. And that phone call to me or that email to me, this episode, if you're listening to it and you're feeling any of that, this is opportunity for redirection. And that's just me being real with you and wanting to help you. The best artists I know constantly revisit their fundamentals because PMU isn't a one and done skill. It's an evolving craft that demands that we stay sharp. And this includes myself. Trends can be awesome and beautiful, but they are either only tailored for certain skin types, very specific clients, looks and styles, and sometimes trends fade. Some trends stay, but they're very specific and particular, and some trends fade off, never to return again. Fundamentals are forever for every skin type, for every artist, and they fuel careers. So I hope I accomplished my mission with this episode in reminding everyone, no matter how long that you have been in this industry or how good your results may be, the fundamentals are important. It's important to revisit them. It's important to understand them. It's important to encourage others to learn the fundamentals. You know? So for those of you that are like me and stuck with your fundamentals and learned them inside and out, backwards and frontwards, and you've used them your entire career, then just pay it forward and encourage others that the fundamentals are key to the success and the longevity of every single artist. You know, there's a saying, rise to the occasion. But when we don't know our fundamentals, when we're not properly trained and educated in fundamentals, broad spectrum fundamentals, are we able to rise to the occasion? Or do we sink to the level of our education and skill set? You know, that's something everybody should ask themselves. So, look, I have a fundamental bundle package on the Girls Inc. Training Academy. And if you listen to this episode, you're going to come across this. It's beyond the epidermis, needles, and machines. And it's a bundle deal. And it's already marked as a deal on the store, discounted because it's a bundle. But I'm going to give you an extra 25% off. All you need to do is email info@girlsinc.com. And let me see, what should I have you put in your subject line? I want to be a fundamental badass. No, this is what I want you to put. I rise to the occasion. That's what I want you to put in your subject line. I rise to the occasion. Send that email off. info@girlsinc.com. Subject line, I rise to the occasion. And we'll send you a code to get 25% off my fundamental package. All right, you guys. Thank you. I don't think I got this podcast down to 45 minutes. I'm not doing well with that at all. Yeah, I guess I should take the fundamentals of podcasting. Anyway, that's the truth. That's the tea. That's the Tatter-a-fact. Until next time, everybody, stay in pursuit of excellence and happiness.